Hello. Welcome. Yes, Jenna is joining us today. Woo! The reason why is because of the topic, and it kind of needed both of us involved because a lot of the issues are related to her too. So, today we are talking about home birth. Yes. I don't think we really discussed it too much before. I think in one of my pregnancy updates, I mentioned that we were considering a home birth and that we would discuss why we decided not and why it wouldn't work for us. And it's for multiple reasons. But I wanted to discuss that issue in general too, because it's a big deal and a lot of people don't know about it. So, first, we'll explain the reasons we wanted a home birth. Well, first of all, I wanted a home birth ever since before even our first baby. I wanted a home birth for our first one as well, but back then nobody, and I mean nobody, agreed with me. She did not want a home birth. Our family definitely didn't want one, and it just didn't work out. And then after we had our experience with a hospital birth, she changed her mind. Do you want to explain why?
Well, I changed my mind because of the experience that we went through at the hospital. It was very stressful, and there was a lot of intervention by the doctors. Some I agree with, but it's more of the way they approached it. Just wasn't a good approach and caused more stress on her that she did not need. Um, Also, we experienced going to the NICU. Mika was actually fine. Looking back, it was totally unnecessary, but they overreacted and just automatically put him into the NICU, put him on medication, and all of these things. And we did not get any support whatsoever. Like they should have been, knowledgeable that it's a stressful experience for us and we were scared and we didn't have any support whatsoever. And so, really, just the overall experience was really stressful, and that was by the doctors. The nurses were fine, they were good. But it was the doctors that just, I don't know, we had such a negative experience. So, that's the reason. Plus, we already went through a hospital experience once. We have a little bit more confidence concerning a home birth. Maybe we kind of know what to expect, what to kind of look for, how things work. So, I felt a little bit more okay with it, and we wanted to experience that.
So, with the previous pregnancy, we were under the care of an OB. With this pregnancy so far, we were with a midwife or a midwifery group. And, anyways, the reason that we decided on home birth, we decided we wanted one, is because our former doula had gotten in contact and said, "Hey, are you guys still considering a home birth?" And he goes, "Yeah, we're still considering it." And that was maybe a month or 2 months ago, somewhere around 2 months ago. And she had mentioned they have what's called a home birth circle. So pretty much it's a group of people that get together and talk about, some that are pregnant now, some are doulas or whatever, just their experience in general with home birth. And I said, yeah, why not go and we can discuss with some other people, kind of see what's going on. Luckily, they were able to get an interpreter to volunteer for us, which was really nice. It was actually a friend, so that was nice because she's a good interpreter. But we went, we brought Miko, and it was really fun. There was a lot of people to discuss about their experiences, and everything was sounding pretty good. And I thought, yeah, this is something that we definitely want to do. We asked a lot of questions about, how do we transition from our current midwifery group to another midwifery group, because you can't necessarily have a home birth unless that specific group has home birth available, and which not many do. But our doula said that she knew some people and we could get in contact with them, blah, blah, blah. And I said I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be issues with the interpreters, because obviously she comes to almost every single appointment. Really, unless there's an emergency at work, she comes. So I want to make sure she can have an interpreter there. What do we do about the birth? Because we had already researched previously and gotten in contact with my insurance, saying we're considering a home birth, which they said they did cover, but they didn't cover interpreters. So I wasn't sure how that was going to work. And we talked about it, and it seemed like everything was going to work out. So the next step was to get in contact with that specific midwifery group and kind of see, what their procedures are. So then we called. Okay, so I called and I left a message because no one answered. And then, of course, the next day, we actually were going to our current midwife, And we got a call while we were on the appointment who said, hey, it's bad timing. Can you call me back in 5 minutes? And she was too busy. I was like, okay, fine. So I called her back, left a message. She didn't call me back until the next day, I think almost in like 5 o'clock. I was actually just arriving at work, and luckily I don't work till 5:30. I had about 30 minutes left. So we talked on the phone. And at first she sounded really nice and, I explained about my placenta previa, which is not an issue now. But anyways, we talked about that. And so he said, what the next thing to do is called like a meet and greet. So we would meet with at least one or maybe more of the midwives at that group, kind of talk about what our plan is, if they think we're good candidates for home birth. And she had mentioned that the doula said you need an interpreter. I said, yes, we need to make sure we have an interpreter for that. When can you get one? Because sometimes you can't just go like the next day because an interpreter's not available. And she's like, oh, well, we can't really provide an interpreter for that. And I was like, ooh, okay. And also, she had mentioned previously that they cannot provide interpreters for the appointments, probably not, but they definitely could not provide interpreters for the birth. And the insurance company said the only way that they would pay for interpreters is if the midwife group, I guess, hired the interpreters or ordered them, and then they have to get reimbursed through their own insurance. So the midwife group has to do it, not us. So I was like, ooh, and they were saying that no, they can't do it. Apparently they said the insurance does not reimburse them enough money to actually cover the cost. So then after that, she said, oh, well, maybe you could interpret for your wife or bring a friend or, something like that, at least for the meet and greet. And I was like, okay, well, let me talk about that with her. And I will let you explain your thoughts about that.
Well, of course, the fact that she said, why doesn't Jill interpret for me? Like, duh, no.
Well, that's the appointment.
But still, it doesn't look good for the future. Maybe later they say, oh, well, can you just do it? That sort of thing. And I didn't want that to lead to us being like, okay, and just accept it. So that kind of drew the line there. I said no. And I guess like just the fact that, if you want to run a good business, especially here in Rochester, there's a huge deaf community, which means if you want to get the deaf clients and you spread that you have good services, that's good business sense, to provide interpreters regardless, especially if insurance reimburses you. I know there's a cost up front, but then, if you have enough employees, then that should work out. You should be able to do that. And, you can put it on your taxes too. So there's a lot of benefits.
Yeah, well, I just want to say it's not that we're trying to say something bad about the midwifery group because I did do my research, and if they provide interpreters, yes, interpreters are expensive. I am expensive. I am worth it. But um, if they pay for the interpreters and then if the insurance doesn't reimburse them the proper amount, then I understand, it's too much. They are a very small place. And that's one of the things that, yes, it's not good business to not provide interpreters. But again, you have to understand if it's a small place and the insurance companies, that's my issue right there, are not willing to pay for the interpreters the proper amount, then I understand why the midwifery group can't, because then they would be in, the red and you can't provide services that way. So, our current midwifery group, if they said no, then no, that would not be okay. But that's kind of one of the big issues is I don't want to, I understand the midwifery group's doing what they can, but, that was kind of our experience. So still, we just decided, if they're not going to be able to or they can't provide interpreters, then it probably wouldn't work out. And then we told our doula, we said, hey, it's not going to work out. She found out too. And so she and the one friend that volunteered to interpret previously for that circle are really sweet. And they said, the doula is going to provide her doula services, plus we would hire the other person as an interpreter, so they would work together, and then they would split the cost of what just the regular doula services is. So instead of paying for both of them, you just pay and they share that cost, which is really, really nice. However,
it's not going to work out for the best because that interpreter themselves, they do have a family, and it's kind of difficult, I guess. Let's say she goes into labor and we have to, on call get her. That person themselves, they have another job. And so that means their availability is limited. They're not available, not 24/7, but you know what I mean? Like they can't just show up at any time last minute, oh, I'm ready. Whereas in a hospital, they have a team of interpreters that are all on call. Whoever's available can come in, they can switch out. They have a whole system set up that's ready to go, which is a really nice benefit. Whereas in this, it's just one person. Can we trust them 100% they're going to be reliable? Probably not. And also, it's not fair to them as well. You know, they have a life.
Yeah, you can't interpret for 24, 30 hours. I mean, hopefully I'm not in labor that long this time, but.
Well, Nico was 29 hours, so that's quite a long time to stay. And it's not feasible. It just isn't.
Right. And so it was really nice of the two of them to do that. We're very thankful for that offer. But to just rely on one interpreter, no matter how good they are, even if they don't have family, that's still, literally, unless they had no job or anything, it's still not going to work. I don't want to have to rely on one interpreter. What if they get sick? What if they have an emergency? They break a leg? I don't know. I mean, anything could happen. And like she mentioned, if we have to go to the hospital, which is not ideal, but we have to go to the hospital, they have a whole bunch of interpreters available. So if one's sick, one can switch out, that sort of thing. They can switch out with each other and, freshen themselves because, even though I'm giving birth, she's doing a lot of work too. And I don't want an interpreter that becomes tired or, they're going to have to eventually go to sleep. You can't interpret for 24 hours, no matter, even if there's not a lot of interpreting. So unfortunately, that just isn't going to work out. And again, we kind of made the decision that home birth just isn't going to work. And one of the things I wanted to make a point in this video is home birth is great. However, the accessibility is another issue, because we forgot to mention as well the cost.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Right. You would think, insurance says they cover it, right? Well, yes. However, we have, you have to pay specific, I think they're called tiers for, your insurance. And so if it's in network, like a tier like we have now, there's a specific amount. And then I think the next one, I don't remember what it's actually called, but it's still considered in network, but I don't remember. You pay a different level, but then you have what's out of network. So something that's not in your network, and understandably, all home birth midwife groups are out of network. So that means that we had to pay, gosh, do you remember how much? I will put a number somewhere over her face. But that's the amount we have to pay. And, with our insurance now, I think like if we're doing like the hospital birth, I think it's maybe $500 or $475, something like that. But, there's other costs involved too. But, we're paying. And I want to say it's $2,500. But again, the number's going to be over here. But that means we have to pay that amount. We have to pay for, I don't know, whatever other stuff on top of that. We have to pay for the doula/interpreter, which is $900. And again, for a doula, that's not bad, just FYI. But, we have to pay all of these costs. And so it becomes really expensive. And there's no home birth people within network. And I'm pretty sure that's countrywide. I don't know if you have one, but we don't. So the cost itself just makes it not accessible. And it's almost impossible to get interpreters unless you have volunteers or you pay for them yourselves. You have to pay all of these costs. It's just, again, I'm not blaming the midwives. I'm not blaming the doulas, any of that. I'm blaming the insurance companies, to be honest.
It's a system.
Right. It's a medical system that almost forces you, especially, if you don't have a lot of money, because we don't have a lot of money, we can't really afford that. We're trying to save because I only have part of a paid time off. And then we have other medical expenses, like we're paying a lot of money for our cat's treatment, things like that. So there's a lot of things happening that just unfortunately, if, you're poor, so to speak, then I don't know how you would be able to afford a home birth. Like, it just, I don't know. I mean, it's like if you speak another language, you're deaf, you need sign language interpreters, whatever, it's almost impossible to do that. So I don't know. Like I said, you might have had a different experience, But I think I just want to mostly talk about this video is what our plan was, but also talk about just the issues with home birth and accessibility in general. And again, it's mostly the insurance companies. They just need to improve. It's really unfortunate because we really wanted a home birth. And now, since my placenta's moved enough, I mean, probably could have it, but we can't. And we're most likely going to be switching back to the hospital that we previously gave birth and we don't like. So it's just really, it made me really sad. And I cried about it and I got really upset, but there is nothing we can do.
Well, and it's kind of just ridiculous because for many, thousands of years, home birth without any sort of medical interventions, like, yes, there was a high mortality rate, but at the same time, the concept is you could do it. That was a normal thing back then for a very, very long time. It wasn't until maybe recently, I'd say within 100, 50 to 100 years, that, it's definitely swung into the hospital and that's become more affordable. Whereas now home birth has kind of become a luxury, in honest. It's just kind of ironic.
Right. And I don't think, I mean, obviously if you have an accidental home birth, that's a whole nother story. But if you have a planned home birth where you're trying to do everything, it is kind of a luxury. And I never realized that. I never thought that, oh, the insurance says it covers it, so great. But then I didn't think about, oh, there's tiers and getting interpreters and all of those sorts of things. So I just wanted to make sure that if it's something you're considering, so if you're considering home birth and you're not deaf, you might not have problems, but there is a lot to consider. If you want to have a home birth, you've had one, great. I'm super jealous of you. But I just want to kind of to bring up awareness on this issue because a lot of people don't think about it and it's really unfortunate. I wanted a home birth and I want it to become more normal and easier accessibility for everyone. I want the midwife groups to be able to provide home births and not have to worry about their business shutting down because they can't afford it because the insurance companies don't pay them properly. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And I'm sorry this has been going on for so long. Like I said, I knew you said we were going to mention it. And I want to know what your experience is. One, have you had a home birth? How did it go? Did you have any issues like we had, like paying more money, accessibility issues? Maybe you're considering a home birth and you can't because of the same issues we're having. Or, maybe you're a midwife or a doula and you provide home birth services. What is your experience? I'm really curious, like what the midwife's experience and the business part is. So if anyone's watching and wants to leave a comment below, please go ahead. That would be really great. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Again, if you have any more questions related to the home birth, leave a comment down below and we will try to answer them if we can. Or if you want another video talking about things, let me know. We will see you in the next one. Bye!